In today's video, we will look at the describe image type of questions in PTE and a step-by-step simple method to handle these kind of questions. In exam, especially under the time circumstances when you have only a few seconds to prepare your response and give an answer, a lot of students they struggle with what information to include, what not to include, how best to put forward their points, and that's where having a proper method really helps. If you go into the exam with a clear strategy and with a clear method, you will always do well. Let's first look at an overview of what this question type is about. You'll find graphs of different types. So these can be line graphs, these can be bar graphs. Uh, they can be just one graph with a single bar or a single line, or they can be multiple bars and multiple graphs in one question. Also, they can be multiple graphs can be combined into one question. So for example, you might see a bar graph and a line graph together in one question, and then you have to get the information from both of those. You'll find charts. Again, you can find just a single pie chart, or you can find a number of different pie charts, and then you have to get some information from each of them, and you have to see how each of those charts they relate to each other as well. You can find diagrams of different types. They can be process diagrams, or they can be step-by-step instructions, or it can be an illustration of how something happens. So you'll find these different kind of diagrams. You'll see tables, right? Information presented in a tabular form. You will have maps. Now these can be real maps, geographical maps. These can be historical maps, where some information is represented over a geographical map. For example, this graph on your left, it shows the places visited by Rudyard Kipling in British India. And you can have maps which show a real place, the location, the schematic of a particular place. You can have photos of different kinds, and then all you have to do is you have to understand what information is represented in that photo, what scene it represents, and then put together that and give a response. So when you are answering this type of questions, I would recommend to go through a number of steps to prepare a response. For example, let's say you are presented with a bar graph with a number of different bars. In our example, this bar graph, it shows human losses of World War II by country. Now, I recommend that you ask yourself a set of questions step by step, and if you go through those steps and you answer those questions, then you will automatically have a very good response. The first question to answer is, what is this? Is this a graph? Is this a picture? Is this a diagram? So just answering that intuitively, you'll immediately know and you will automatically answer this. So that will give you your opening sentence that this picture or this diagram or this graph represents. Next, try to identify what is the main theme. So now here the main theme is human losses of World War II by country. Now this main theme will again help you build your overview, build your opening sentence. After that, look for any key, a legend, or an information on the axis. Now in this case, there's definitely a key which says that the purple colored bars, they represent a percentage of country population, and the ones in the pink or the red color, they represent absolute numbers in millions. So you can now say that the bar graph, it shows the human losses by country, and it presents this information in two forms, in millions, in absolute numbers, and also as a percentage of that country's total population. After that, try to look for what stands out the most. Means, what's the most striking feature of that image? what is the highest point or what is the lowest point. In this case, what stands out the most, that is the bars for the Soviet Union. Okay, so Soviet Union lost almost 24 million people in World War II. That's the single most important point here. Is there a trend? Now, a trend, it can be, you can find out a trend or make a projection if it's a graph, an image, or a curve which goes into the future, which is still going on. But in our example, this is a historical graph, something which happened and ended in the past, so you can't say that there is a trend. Is there a comparison to make? Now when you want to make a comparison, you have already identified what the highest point is, right? That is the loss of Soviet Union. You can definitely make a comparison. So you can say that Soviet Union, it lost 24 million, but the third highest number, which is the loss by Germany at close to 8 million, it's almost one third of that of Soviet Union, right? You can also make a comparison similarly between as percentage of a country population. You can say that China, though lost almost 20 million people, the percentage was less than 4% of the country's population. So you always make those comparisons between the highest and the lowest, or between the first, between the second, between the third, right? Those immediate points, try to make some comparisons. When you make a comparison, you will be using a vocabulary which will, for example, in comparison or compared to Soviet Union, or you will say something like in contrast, the second highest. So when making a comparison gives you an opportunity to use a better vocabulary, a wider range of language. So it's important to make those comparisons. After that, see, are there too many points? Yes, definitely, there are close to 20 or more countries here, so you will never have time to go through each. Then you have to see how to club them. Okay, so you can talk about Soviet Union, China, Germany, maybe, and then try to club them. You can say that countries such as India, Yugoslavia, French Indochina, Romania, Hungary, France, and many others, they lost less than 2 million people, less than 2 million of the population in the Second World War. And finally, can we make a conclusion or projection? Now, usually a projection means you're projecting something about the future, you're telling something about the future. In this case, since this is an historical event which has already happened, you can't make a projection. But can you make a conclusion? Can you make a concluding or a closing statement? Yes, most definitely you can do that in most cases, in most images that you have. In this case, for example, you can say that from the graph, it is visible that pretty much all the countries in the world, the whole world was significantly impacted, and millions of people, close to 100 million, lost their lives in the Second World War. So it's always possible to make a conclusion like that. Making a conclusion is important because when you do that, it shows that you don't just read the numbers on a picture, you also know how they correlate, right? How what the impact of all of that information is in a bigger context. So always try to make a conclusion or a projection if possible. There definitely will be some images, some graphs, where you can't really make a conclusion, where you just have to read some information. Then don't force yourself to make a conclusion, then read that information as best as you can. The structure of your response: begin with an overview which tells what that image is about, what the main theme is, what information is contained in it. Then identify key point one, which is something that should stand out. So the most important information in that picture, in that image, take that as your key point one. After that, go for key point two, which can be a comparison, or it can be more information, or it can also be something about the trend. Now the same applies to key point 3. So key point 2 and key point 3, these can be more information, or you can bring out a comparison here, or you can talk about a trend here, and then finally make a conclusion. Your concluding statement, that would be what is something that is going to happen in the future, or what is something that you understand based upon that image. Now let's put all of this into practice with the help of an example. This is what the example is. It's a chart, a number of pie charts, and the title is favorite social media channel in 3 different years, and then each of those channels, they are represented by a different color. Now the first thing that you have to do, you have to prepare your overview, and as I said, we will follow the steps. The steps were what this particular image is. Now this image, this is a set of bar graphs. What the theme is, it shows which social media channel is the most favorite, and basically a comparison of the social media channels and how favorite they are in 3 years. And that, is there a legend? Is there a key here? Yes, there is a key here. So the blue is Facebook, then the red is Twitter, green is LinkedIn, and so on. So take that information, and that will also form your opening sentence, which is, this pie chart compares the 5 most popular social media avenues for the years 2011 to 2013. Now, a few things that I want you to note here. We didn't mention Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, and Pinterest, each one of them. We just said 5 most popular social media avenues. And we didn't just say channels, we tried to use another word there, so we said avenues. And we didn't say 2011, 2012, 2013, we just said 2011 to 2013. So if you answer those first few questions which we discussed, that gives you your opening sentence. Next we have to get to the key points, and as I had said in the questions that you ask yourself while preparing the response, the next question that you have to ask yourself is, what stands out the most? Or what's the highest, what's the lowest, what's more significant? In this case, what stands out the most is that Facebook, it had the highest share, and it still continues to have the highest share, followed by red, that's Twitter. So that will be our first point. It's immediately clear that Facebook has been the most favorite for all 3 channels, followed by Twitter. In 2011, Facebook was at 59%, Twitter at 22%. In 2012, Facebook was at 49% and Twitter at 23%. And in 2013, Facebook was at 38% and Twitter at 25%. So you did that very well. Now, for point number 2 and 3, we said that we'll try to make a comparison, or if there are a number of other points, we'll try to club them, right? If it's not possible to make a comparison, it's not possible to talk about a trend, then what we'll do, we'll just read out the rest of the information. So we can always say that Google was 5% in 2011, 10% in 2012, and 14% in 2013. But when we say that we'll talk about trends or make comparisons, it gives us a way to basically present the same information but in a better way, in a way that will get us a better score. For example, this is what we say. It is obvious that the share of Facebook is declining and other channels are gaining at its cost. Google Plus almost tripled its share from 5% in 2011 to 14% in 2013. So what we did was, we talked about a trend, we also made a comparison, right? And instead of just saying that Google was 5% in this, 10% in this, 14% in this, we actually recognized that it has tripled, almost tripled, from 5% to 14% in 2013. And we also noticed the trend that Facebook is falling, whereas other channels are gaining at its cost. So when you do that, it shows that you can do much more than just read the numbers on an image or just read the labels. So if you want to get a high score, above average score, then you have to try to do this. Finally, as we said, if it's possible to make a conclusion or a projection, we will do that. And in this case, in our conclusion, we can definitely make a projection, because this is something which is happening in present times, right? Facebook and all of these social media channels, they are still going on. So we can definitely make a projection. So we can say, if the trend continues, Facebook might stop being the most favorite social media platform in near future. So it's possible that in 4 years time, Twitter might be the most favorite, or LinkedIn might be the most favorite. So now you can see that just by following some simple steps, asking yourself certain questions in a systematic manner, you've ended up with a pretty good response. This pie chart compares the 5 most popular social media avenues for the year 2011 to 2013. It's immediately clear that Facebook has been the most favorite for all 3 years, followed by Twitter. In 2011, Facebook was at 59%, Twitter at 22%. In 2012, Facebook was at 49% and Twitter at 23%. And in 2013, Facebook was at 38% and Twitter at 25%. It's obvious that the share of Facebook is declining and other channels are gaining at its cost. Google Plus almost tripled its share from 5% in 2011 to 14% in 2013. If the trend continues, Facebook might stop being the most favorite social media platform in near future. Okay, so don't panic. When you have, whether you have a simple image or whether you have a complicated image, remember to follow the steps. Let's just go through the steps once more. Remember the steps, ask yourself right questions, and go systematically, and you will definitely answer this question type very well. The first step was, what is this? Was this a graph, a chart, a table, a map, a diagram, or something else? What is the main theme? Is there a title? Is there a label? What does that tell you? Any key, any legend, any axis? So, for example, is there something which tells you what the blue color bar is, what the red color bar is? Is there some information on the x-axis, on the y-axis, that is the horizontal and the vertical, that you can read? So the first three, they will give you your overview sentence, the opening sentence. Then ask yourself what stands out the most. Is there a highest? Is there a lowest point? Is there a trend? Is there a comparison to make? Okay, so comparison can be made between the highest, between the lowest. A comparison can be made between lines when they cross each other. Okay, when one line overtakes another, you can make a comparison. Is there a trend? Are there too many points? If there are too many points, then think about it. Will you talk about all those points, or are you going to club them together? And if you are going to club them together, how will you club them together? So, for example, in our the example that we looked, we just said that a number of countries like India, French Indochina, and many others lost less than 2 million in the Second World War. So don't try to mention each and every point, you'll run out of time. It's more important to complete the structure, which is completed in the end by making a conclusion or a projection if you can. In our case, in our conclusion, we said that if the trend continues, Facebook will stop being the most favorite social media channel in near future. Alright, so follow these steps, get a lot of practice, have confidence, and do not panic in your exam, and you'll do surely well. If you need more free practice, then check out links in the video description. And we have posted some other videos on describe image questions, which contain more detailed practice. All the best with your preparation. Keep watching, keep learning.